Usually when you hear the word distortion in audio, you instantly think of a flaw, like dirt on a camera lens.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually public enemy number one for audiophiles.
Right. But what if audio distortion is actually more like, say, salt in a recipe? I mean, dump the whole shaker in, and yeah, you ruin the dish.
But if you use exactly zero salt, the whole thing just becomes completely tasteless.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into the wildly unconventional world of audio inventor George A. Georgopoulos to see why perfect sound might actually be, well, terrible sound.
Yeah, and Georgopoulos builds his entire philosophy around this exact salt idea, but he is merciless about which salt you can actually use.
Merciless how? Like, what are the strict rules here?
Well, he divides distortion into very strict categories. So there are bad distortions that an electronics designer just has to ruthlessly eliminate.
Like, what kind of bad distortion?
Specifically clipping distortions. So
Okay.
things like crossover clipping and power supply rails clipping. Those are the ones he hates.
Wait, hold on. Before we get too deep in the weeds here, what exactly is happening when an amp actually clips?
Okay, so think of clipping like hitting a physical ceiling. If the audio signal gets way too loud for the power supply to handle,
The top of the sound wave just literally gets chopped off.
right, it gets clipped against that ceiling. And that creates this really harsh grating sound. And then crossover clipping happens when the signal switches between components and just sort of stutters.
Got it. So Georgopoulos, these are like dirt in the recipe. They just have to go.
Exactly. But then, and this is the crazy part, he turns around and demands a totally different kind of distortion.
Right. Total harmonic distortion, or THD.
Yeah, he actually argues that driving THD down to 0% completely ruins the music.
Which is wild. Why would an audio inventor actively want distortion in this system?
Well, it comes down to how acoustic instruments actually behave in the physical world. I mean, think about a cello or a grand piano.
They don't just produce some sterile, mathematically pure sound wave.
Exactly. Real musical instruments naturally produce harmonic distortion, like these subtle, mathematically related overtones at low levels.
Which is what gives a cello its actual warmth and character.
Right. So if you engineer an amplifier to have 0% THD, you are essentially just stripping away the natural voice of the instrument.
Wow. So you're making it too perfect.
Yeah. Georgopoulos believes an audio system's job is not to achieve a perfect zero on some laboratory test bench. It has to reproduce the natural signature of the music itself.
And he targets around 1% THD for that, right?
Yeah.
Just to maintain that organic resonance.
Yeah, about 1%. And because he is so obsessive about maintaining that specific THD while simultaneously acting as like a hitman against clipping, standard off-the-shelf parts just won't cut it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the entire industry right now is obsessed with modern Class D amplifiers, right?
Yeah.
Because they're incredibly efficient and they run so cool.
Right, but how does his philosophy fit into that? It doesn't at all.
Oh, man, he hates them, doesn't he?
He explicitly calls Class D amplification rubbish, just straight up rubbish.
Wait, he writes off the industry standard entirely. Why?
Because Class D amps chop the audio signal into these rapid pulses just to save energy. It's highly efficient, sure, but Georgopoulos argues it completely destroys the natural waveform.
Ah, I see. So what does he actually approve of then?
In his view, there are only two acceptable classes of power amplification, Class A and Class PSH tool. That is it.
And Class A is the one where the transistors are just fully powered on 100% of the time, right?
Exactly. It is terribly inefficient and generates massive heat, but it provides the purest, most continuous signal path possible.
So no crossover stutter like we mentioned earlier.
Right, not at all.
Which definitely explains his hardware designs.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at his custom GGA gear in the sources, these things look like absolute tanks.
Oh yeah, massive metal heat sinks dominating the sides. They have to deal with all that Class A power heat.
Yeah, you see it on his top-end audio model N4 and the GAG speaker system, the GGA Mono Hi-Fi HD. Even his custom high-end stereo headphone amps are just built like tanks.
They really are, and branded with Georgopoulos and GGA everywhere.
But what is actually inside them? Like, does he prefer old-school tubes to get that warm 1% THD sound?
Interestingly, no. He actually ranks the absolute best devices for audio amplification in a very specific hierarchy.
Okay, lay it on me. What's number one?
Number one is BJTs, or bipolar junction transistors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, number two is MOSFETs. And coming in a very distant third is tubes and valves.
Really? So for those of us who aren't, soldering amps in our garages on the weekends, Why do BJTs beat out classic tubes for him?
Well, because BJTs handle electrical current in a way that allows for incredibly fast response times. They can reproduce the really sharp dynamic transients of music.
Oh, like the sudden strike of a snare drum or something.
Yeah, exactly. They do it much faster and more accurately than tubes do, and crucially without adding the wrong kind of dirt to the signal.
So basically everything he builds, his custom amps, his speakers, it's all a physical rebellion against modern audio engineering.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Sometimes the numbers on a page tell you a system is mathematically perfect, but your ears tell you it is just entirely lifeless. He is building the physical antidote to that.
So Georgopoulos teaches us that in this whole pursuit of high fidelity, chasing clinical perfection actually strips away the soul and natural resonance of the original instruments.
It really does. You need that 1% of natural imperfection.
Which leaves you with this thought to mull over. If a technically perfect reproduction actually makes music sound worse, what other areas in your life or work might be suffering right now because you are chasing sterile perfection instead of natural authenticity?